Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Conanan. Tonight's topic is medical marijuana. And joining us still is Mr. Chuck Banansala, the founder of the Medical Cannabis Research Center. And joining him is Dr. Jem Mark Mutia, Philippine Doctors for Medical Cannabis. Welcome, Chuck. And of course, Jem.
Thank you so
Philippines
much for
Uncut.
having us here. You and your viewers will definitely learn something new.
No, I have to say, it's been an eye-opener for me. I mean, these last two shows I've done, the first one was with Kimi Del Prado and Romy Ballesteros last week, and really total eye-opener. Now I have you two fine gentlemen here, and again, it's really opening my mind to marijuana. And I have to admit, before I did this show, I was one of the many people who thought that marijuana is a bad thing. It's a illegal narcotic that has all these bad side effects, etc., etc., etc. But okay, before we jump into the topic, let's talk about you, Jem. What is your background?
I'm a general practitioner. I'm a medical doctor. My research on cannabis started actually 7 years ago in first year medical school. Out of a class of 120, our group was tasked to report on substances of abuse. And out of 12 members, I was the one assigned to report on cannabis. So not only do you report about the intoxicating effects, the side effects, you need to be thorough in explaining the effects, and that's how I found out about its benefits as well, not just its potential for abuse. And ever since then, I have been an advocate of cannabis up until now.
Now, what is this group, Philippine Doctors for Medical Cannabis? Is this an organized society?
Essentially
or
just
group?
a Facebook group right now. It has around 100 members, mostly young doctors.
Well, it's a lot,
because
yeah.
the established doctors we have in contact are not usually on Facebook, but those are usually young doctors within my batch. Yeah.
Now, let's say the new generation of doctors, do you see them more open to this? I mean, let me phrase it this way. What is, traditionally, what has been the view of the medical industry, the medical practitioners like you, on cannabis?
As always, the medical profession is conservative. They don't want to jump right into saying and telling their patients to use this, use that. As with any other medicine that you prescribe, it has to undergo FDA regulation. And for our medicines here, for the diseases we treat, we just pattern it with Western guidelines. So that's just the basic reason why we don't have pioneers here in, for doctors for medical cannabis.
But do you observe that more and more doctors are becoming open?
Yes, as with the general population, especially the youth with access to information with a click, our young doctors are also researching by themselves with the benefits of cannabis.
Are you aware if any of them, if there are any doctors now who are probably doing this, as Chuck said earlier, underground maybe? I mean, because at the moment it's illegal, no? But I mean,
Personally, I don't know of any colleague prescribing or giving medical cannabis officially, but I have heard many reports on patients self-medicating with very good success rates.
So where do the doctors get, let's say, experience with this? If they can't, experiment with it, or if they can because it's illegal, how do they get, their knowledge, their experience basically with cannabis?
Again,
just online maybe, or
online and through Western experts. We can invite experts, specialists, cannabis clinicians that are experienced in prescribing cannabis.
And some have come to the Philippines already.
Yes, especially Dr. Carl Hart. Yes, a
Dr. Carl Hart is a
neuropsychopharmacologist.
He's come to Manila, and he's actually held seminars about cannabis.
He had one talk, I think.
He had two talks, one in UP Diliman, another in UP Manila. But it was not centered on marijuana. It talked about drugs in general. And he started deconstructing the myth about the dangers of cannabis. And if people listen there, they will change their mind totally about drugs. Because what we hear about drugs is totally unscientific. There is no basis at all in what they are saying. Because the current dominant ideology on drugs is not based on science at all. It is based on a prohibitionist approach. That is dangerous. Drugs will prove it that it is
How
dangerous.
interesting, no?
So in the United States, the National Institute for Drug Abuse focuses on granting funds only if your study is to discover the adverse effect of marijuana.
Only
for
the
example.
adverse effects.
Yes.
What about the benefits?
No.
That's
It
crazy.
will not
Only
be approved.
recently that,
That recently, just
Yeah.
in June,
yes,
the White House decided to lift a bureaucratic step in the process of getting approval for research. But there is a monopoly. Only NIDA is allowed to grow at the federal level. It's different at the state level.
I hate to say it, but it does seem like there is a concerted effort to really keep this. It seems like it, no? To keep it from propagating, to keep it from this thing from going mainstream, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like it, no?
there could be, we could entertain some
Conspiracy
theory,
theories.
but to my mind, the more realistic explanation is that
Yeah.
it is simply mental inertia.
We've
You
been
have
trained to
believed-
see, to believe or to think in a certain way,
Yes.
and then we just keep going in that direction, and you know.
Yeah, the
but we're
beautiful
stopped.
thing about this is that in the Philippines, things are quite different from the United States. In the Philippines, there is no single authority that questions the medical value of cannabis. None.
Okay.
The Catholic Church has come out openly in the press, and we met with them personally to ask their opinion. And
What is the
they
opinion of the
said-
church?
What they said was the use of narcotic drugs, including marijuana, is morally acceptable and is a long-held principle in the Vatican that for patients who are in need, especially those in hospice care and those suffering from pain,
Yeah.
it will not be ethical to prevent them
Access
from
to these.
accessing these drugs. So there's no problem with the church.
Okay.
The Philippine National Police, during a conference we held last February, recognizes that there is such a thing as medical marijuana or medical cannabis. So even the government, in their own law, recognizes this. It's just that there are certain people who want to confuse medical cannabis from just marijuana.
And I see why it's easy to confuse the issue, because a lot of us have been really schooled in one thought only when it comes to marijuana. Dr. Jem, you mentioned the intoxicating effects. Now, when you talk about marijuana, you really have to talk about it really has. I mean, it is a narcotic, no?
yes.
So, what are the intoxicating effects when one takes marijuana?
In general, what we call high is, in medical term, we call psychoactive activity, okay? Psychoactiveness. And there are a lot of narcotics and drugs that do that. Opioid medications, which are derivatives of morphine from the opium poppy, derivatives of a natural plant. They produce psychotropic effects or psychoactive effects. Ethanol from brewed sugars in alcohol is psychoactive too.
So
Yes.
you can get high. I mean, drinking alcohol.
Yes.
For a beer or it has the same. It has the same effect.
Yes, essentially.
And yet, when you talk about, and yet alcohol is dispensed. It's available everywhere, right?
So you can get high from recreational drugs and from prescription drugs as well. And it basically means that you perceive things differently. Okay? Some drugs would impair your judgment. Some would alter your mood.
How about marijuana? What does it do?
Yes, it does those things, but in a different degree to other narcotics. Yes, it does make you euphoric, or it makes you happy. It elevates your mood. It diminishes concentration. It actually makes you more aware, I think, and that's where,
Really?
yes, it makes you more aware. That's where the paranoia comes from, because you get to be more aware of the
heightened sense,
changes
your senses are heightened,
in your body.
Okay.
And then once you get aware of those, you might feel restless because you're uncomfortable with the changes, especially for novice users. So those are basically the psychoactive
Now,
effects.
Chuck, I want to ask you, because you used it,
Yeah.
marijuana, before in
Yeah,
your youth.
yeah.
Now, we've heard of the scientific, how about layperson? How will it, let's say, if you take marijuana, you smoke it, what does it do to you? I mean,
The first thing you will experience is that
from a layperson perspective, yeah.
is that you start to feel excited. You start to feel a heightened sense of feeling. Yung mukha mo parang kumakapal na ganon.
Okay.
Tapos you become lightheaded.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then you tend to laugh.
Oh, that's nice.
So,
That's,
it's a laughing trip. Your
Okay.
appetite is stimulated. Kain ka na
Eat
kain. It's
more.
called a food trip. Before, now it's called the munchies.
Okay.
So, marijuana produces a very desirable experience, provided you don't take too much. At a certain level, at a certain
like
dosage.
alcohol. Like
As
alcohol.
with anything.
As
Like-
with anything. Or like
like-
alcohol.
Exactly.
Dose dependent.
It
The
is dose
effects are
dependent.
dose dependent. If
Yes.
you want to introduce someone or to introduce a patient to a new medication, you don't start off with high doses. You start off with small doses. Yeah.
Right. So, marijuana is also a very effective creative aid. When you are intoxicated with marijuana or you are high on marijuana, you tend to see the connection of things. Because certain pathways in the brain are opened up and start getting connected.
So you could actually become more productive, no?
You are more productive, actually.
Your senses are heightened. and-
Especially if you're going to do creative work. But if you are going to operate machinery, if
Like
you're
alcohol.
going to drive, then
Yeah.
you better not use cannabis. The danger with marijuana is that when you're driving, you tend to drive slower because you are more aware of your surroundings.
Well, that's also not a bad thing,
Actually, it's a good thing.
no? It's a good thing, no?
In contrast
Yeah.
to alcohol, where you don't notice the speed barometer.
Okay, let's compare quickly before we stop for our break. When you comparing alcohol intoxication and the high you get from marijuana, what you said is that it seems like marijuana is actually the safer thing to take.
Yes,
Right?
because alcohol, you have a lethal dose. You can die from drinking too much alcohol.
Directly from the chemical effects of alcohol, it can be toxic to the body.
What about marijuana?
Marijuana is a derivative of a natural compound in the body. It is not totally foreign to the body. The body knows how to handle it, how to eliminate it. It is not totally foreign. That's why you can't overdose from it.
Wow.
There is
You can
no-
OD. There's
there
no
is
ODing
no-
for marijuana.
Yes.
You can probably overdose and create paranoia, but there is no lethal dose. You cannot die.
And it doesn't make you angry,
Yes.
right? Because I know that alcohol does bring out rage.
Aggression
and
is a known effect of
sure, yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yes.
But with
that
marijuana-
doesn't happen in
Marijuana-
marijuana.
Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah. So the anti-war protesters in the 70s, where a lot of them were recreational users, and their symbol was peace.
I have to say, gentlemen, hearing all this, my previous opposition to marijuana is like breaking down like a house of cards, I have to say. It's like, but we're going to talk about more about this in the third segment. Guys, don't go away because more of medical marijuana when Philippines Uncut returns.